next up is Alex Svetski, and Alex has flown all the way over from Brazil to be with us. So that's a huge effort. We appreciate that. And I had the opportunity to hang out with both Freddie and Alex in Norway before we came here. We were there for the Human Rights Foundation, the Freedom Forum in Oslo. So yeah, Alex is going to come up and drop some news about what he's been doing for the last few years.
I'm going to see if I can offend absolutely everybody here and on the planet. So um, I prepared this talk on the way, so I'm going to need a couple of my notes here for assistance. But let's kick into it. So this is one of my favorite Nietzsche quotes of all time. If you crush a butterfly, you're a hero. If you crush a cockroach, you're a hero. If you crush a butterfly, you're a villain. Morality has aesthetic standards. And it's one of my all-time favorite quotes because the rationalist is going to argue with you. The Democrat will be offended. The moralist will tell you that it's unethical. The theologian will tell you it's wrong. The hippie will tell you it's cruel. The materialist will even argue with you on subjective grounds. In fact, all of your modern civilized conditioning will tell you it's unfair. But when push comes to shove and you see the cockroach, you're going to squash it and you're going to praise the person who does. While if you see someone do the same to a butterfly, you will be intuitively enraged by it. It'll piss you off. Even if you don't say anything, it'll make you angry. And this is really important because these visceral truths, these these visceral reactions point to something fundamentally true about reality. And it's because they're instincts. Instincts, if you ask Nietzsche, something that we developed as lessons over time. Like instincts are lessons stored in our blood, our bodies, and our DNA, none of which can lie. Which is the reason why we're afraid of things like tigers and why we don't touch fire. Now, beauty is one of those things. Beauty is one of those deep, visceral truths. And beauty is also full of paradoxes. Beauty is simultaneously, in fact, it's the only thing that I believe is simultaneously objective and objective at the same time. Ian McGilchrist, who wrote The Master and His Emissary, fantastic book, which I haven't finished reading yet, but I've read parts of, says that beauty is symmetrically asymmetrical. Beauty is powerful, but it is also fragile. Beauty is dangerous, but it is also nurturing. Beauty is natural, but it is also man-made. Beauty is both everlasting and it's fleeting. Beauty is something that it it's like truth. It cannot be decreed. Like you can't be told something's beautiful. You just have to recognize it, right? It's not. It's something you feel, not something you think. You can rationalize it after the fact, which we do, but beauty is recognizable, and that's very special. And the opposite of beauty, ugliness, has the exact same visceral characteristics. You know it when you see it because it has a repulsive effect, as you can see with these people. Now, if you compare them side by side, right? Whether it's a Calvin Klein ad, uh, you know which one is beautiful, which one is ugly. Whether it's architecture, you know which one is beautiful and ugly. Whether it's a family versus whatever the fuck the other thing is. Whether it's sculptures, right? You know what is beautiful, what's not. Like if you don't recognize the one on the bronze one, it's like the Martin Luther King, the modern statue of that. I don't know what the fuck it is. Um, you see it in people as well, right? Dylan Mulvaney over here versus a beautiful woman, and Monica Bellucci versus whatever this thing is. And these two last ones point to something very interesting. And this is one of the many practical features of beauty, which is a signal for health and fertility. So life is the thing that wants to continue. Life wants to create. Life wants to produce. Life wants to ascend. And life cannot do that with something that is dead or barren, right? Now, this is also a good signal if you want to know if someone is psychologically stable or not. you can ask them which of these things are beautiful, right? And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, if if you're psychologically functional, you'll know what's beautiful, what's not out of this. Which leads me to one of my favorite topics, which is called physiognomy. And this gets a lot of midwits really, really angry, which is why it's one of my favorite topics. But physiognomy represents beauty that manifests on the outside that comes from within. So, I've got a quote here, which is, beauty permeates everything, our thoughts, our emotions, and our physical bodies. So there's a great book by an author, probably forgotten. His name is Roald Dahl. He used to write children's books back when children's books were still based and not so woke. And this book here is called The Twits. So he has a quote in there which says, if a person has ugly thoughts, it begins to show on their face. And when that person has ugly thoughts every day, every week, every year, the face gets uglier and uglier and uglier until you can hardly bear to look at it. And the corollary, and the opposite is also true with beautiful thoughts. Now, we have a great example here of Jacinta Ardern, who was the Prime Minister of New Zealand, who decided to lock down 5 million people, force them to get vaccinated and all the other bullshit. And the older she got, the more ugly thoughts she had and the more she turned into it. Now, of course, once again, the midwits will screech that physiognomy is a pseudoscience, that it's not real, that no, beauty is superficial. They will also screech that somehow lockdowns can stop a virus. But, as usual, physiognomy is real, and ugly people are wrong, basically. So, um, you know, George Orwell, oops, where's my George Orwell slide? It's gone. George Orwell has a fantastic saying, which is, at 50, you get the face that you deserve, which is to do with how you behave, who you are on the inside. Beauty is truth. So I like to think of the divine mountain or the peak of the highest good. The two slopes that lead to it are beauty and truth, which also happen to be the two things that most corrupt institutions try and fake, right? They try and fake beauty, makeup, all that kind of crap, and truth, lies, etc. Economics is materialist. Like, I'm sure people here are probably familiar with Austrian economics and the subjective theory of value and all of that stuff, and that's all extremely important. But it lives in the materialist paradigm. It is not transcendent like beauty or truth. Beauty and truth both transcend the material. They transcend the world of economics and the world of the subjective. And this is why I tell people not to be fooled by dum-dums like this Tim Urban guy who did that Wait But Why podcast or blog or whatever it was. He is of these materialist weirdos like the Sam Harris of the world, etc., who think that beauty is entirely subjective. But that's completely false, because beauty is in the fundamental structure of the universe. It is, as I said earlier, it's beyond rational, but we can also rationalize it. It is beyond measurable, but we can also do our best to attempt to measure it. Beauty is in the fractals that literally make up life. The Fibonacci sequence, musical octaves, right? Geometry, sacred geometry, pi, which is the golden ratio, as you can see here. These things represent beauty. We've managed to kind of find our way there. And these patterns are not only beautiful, but as I said, they underpin the very structure, the melody of the universe. It's in the word. Universe means one song. These things are all interestingly related. Beauty is powerful, and power is actually beautiful. When you look at nature, a big part of why it is beautiful is because it is full of power. And power is a really dirty word in the Bitcoin space, unfortunately, and it's something we need to fix. I've never understood how Bitcoiners could say in the same sentence, proof of work, good, but power is evil or power is bad. And that doesn't make sense, because these two things are both fundamentally entwined. Like in a physics sense, they're actually related. They're both, from an equation standpoint, fundamentally related. Power is work over time. But fundamentally speaking, like philosophically speaking, power is the capacity to channel energy. There's nothing evil about that. In fact, this is one of the big takeaway points that I want you guys to have, is like, power is not evil. It's not that power corrupts, but that the corrupt can attain power. Power is similar to technology in that it's agnostic, right? It's a thing that you give power to a sadist, he will try and trample on those below him and bring those above him down, right? Whereas a powerful person, a strong person, a responsible person, a virtuous person will seek to channel that power towards more beauty. And this is a really, 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 really important mental shift that people need to make. Is when we start to vilify things like power, we leave a vacuum for the parasites to take hold. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But this is an example of somebody who is channeling power for a better cause. Like this is a beautiful use of power, and it's an example of what we as Bitcoiners should be seeking to do at a broader scale. And we know this. Like there was a Lord of the Rings reference in the previous talk, but for me, Tolkien touched on something really, really deep. Is the ugly were the orcs and the goblins. They represented the evil. The good were the elves and the humans, who represented the beautiful. And this is another example of one of those visceral truths that we know deep down. So I'd like to put forth my definition, which I think is the true definition of evil, and it's not mine. It's shared by the Nietzsches of the world and all of these people. Is that the true definition of evil is that which wants to defile and destroy the beautiful. And you see this a lot in communist regimes. They want to tear everything down. They want to make everything ugly. They want to make everything gray, right? And when you think about all of these people are the ones who they don't want you to know that power is beautiful. They want you to think that power is evil so that you can abdicate your responsibility to channel it. They want you to leave a vacuum for them to fill. They want to make you believe bullshit like power is evil, beauty is ugly, beauty is superficial, all this sort of stuff. It's fundamentally wrong. What they are most afraid of is you being powerful and you creating beautiful stuff. This is what they're most afraid of because it reflects on them. It reflects on their ugliness. Remember before when we did the comparisons of beauty and ugly? If everything is ugly, you don't have a comparison against which to compare it. So they turned your own conscience against you. They made you believe that power and beauty were evil, and when in fact the truth is that weakness and ugliness are the evil thing. So make no mistake about it, this is the real fight that we're up against. I used to think that it was communism versus capitalism, but I was actually wrong. I even wrote a goddamn book about it. But the real fight is actually communism versus beauty. And that's the fundamental truth of the world, and that's something that we've forgotten that we need to remember. So what does all of this have to do with Bitcoin? Well, as our Chad friends say, everything. Bitcoin is, in my opinion, an opportunity to revive beauty. And that is because beauty is the ultimate in low time preference pursuits. Like there's nothing more low time preference than beauty. Whether that is raising a family, building beautiful kids, putting the energy that it takes to do that, whether it is building a beautiful body, an aesthetic body, whether it is building a product or a service or a company or a sculpture or a cathedral that takes 300 years to build. These things are beautiful. Whether it's the creation of these mountains that took tens of thousands of years, or the very earth that we're living on. Beauty fundamentally takes time, whereas ugliness, whether it's dropping a bomb on someone or chopping your genitals off, that only takes a second, right? And if we can, and this is the piece about Bitcoin, if we can build a monetary system that rewards low time preference, not by political decree, it's not because I told you to save, but because the very nature of the money is such that people save it, people respect it, people like their time and their energy can respect it. You get three things. You get the localization of economic consequence. We were talking earlier with Dan on the panel about Bitcoin as responsibility money. It's not just about freedom, but freedom that comes with a responsibility. So if you send your Bitcoin to the wrong address, there's no support line that you can call and say, hey, Satoshi, can you give me my money back? So it's extremely responsible money, but that's why it's also freeing. So you get the localization of economic consequence. You reward good behavior, you punish bad. It increases adaptability. So on a Bitcoin standard, the economic signal increases. So you get better signal and better feedback loops, which increases the adaptability of the system, the economy being a system. And then it fits the territories, fits the map to the territory better, which means you have a more natural and organic system. And what do we do as human beings when we have more time and more space? Well, we have the time and the patience to build beautiful things, which is an example here, right? So Bitcoin, in my unpopular opinion, is not just about banking the unbanked or store a value or get rich and get my Lambo and all that sort of stuff. It is about all of that stuff, but in my opinion, it's about so much more. Bitcoin is a framework for excellence and a framework for beauty that the ugly and the deceitful will have a much harder time breaking down. So that's why today I want to add my definition to the whole Bitcoin of all of these things. It's a framework for excellence and beauty. Because I agree with Dostoevsky, with Alexander Solzhenitsyn, with Nietzsche, with Orwell, with Chesterton, with Plato, with Aristotle, and all of the great thinkers of all time. Beauty is the thing that will save the world. I was asked the question earlier today about, okay, well, we've got Bitcoin, but does that really help? It's like, yes, that's a good piece, but there's so much more that we need to develop. We need to inculcate these virtues. That's why I spent the last 2 years, 7 drafts, 125,000 words, like writing a book about it, about beauty in particular, but also power, about virtues, about culture, about civilization. Because it's up to us to create something more beautiful. Beauty is not a given. Just because we got Bitcoin today doesn't mean we magically become more beautiful tomorrow. It requires work. It requires that we become better, because who we are is defined by what we do. And in that book, I actually explore the 10 virtues that overlap across the greatest cultures throughout human history that preceded the greatest civilizations that came thereafter, whether it was the Japanese, whether it was the medieval and the feudal West, the Faustian West, whether it was the Romans, the ancient Greeks, the Macedonians, all of that, the Thracians, the Illyrians, all of that, these cultures established the greatest civilizations that came after. And the way I like to explain it to people is, if the fiat standard today requires a set of virtues, a set of non-virtues, right? Things like cheating, lying, stealing, working for a bureaucratic apparatus, a Bitcoin standard is going to require a new framework in order for you to get ahead. And this, in my opinion, is the kind of playbook, because virtues transcend even beliefs. People of different religions who might have completely different beliefs still recognize things like things like courage and compassion and honor and respect and loyalty. These things are virtues that transcend belief. So, if this got you thinking a little bit, if this triggered you, if you're interested in these kind of topics, I don't have time obviously to go through it here, but I go through it in the book. Like, I explore each virtue etymologically, psychologically, philosophically, historically, and I go into deep rabbit holes like virtue powers, all that sort of stuff. And if you feel like I feel, which is we've been lied to about a lot of these topics, then I'd like to invite you to come and explore this book as I launch it, which is basically today. Or it's going to be at Prague next week, but I'm going to you guys get a little bit of a taster. Because I truly believe that, like, we are on the cusp of a new era. Like, we are, this is the whole cyclical thing about, weak men, strong men, good times, bad times, etc. And we are definitely right in the stage of, like, weak men, hard times, and there's going to be an opportunity to spin that around. And it's our duty to basically say no to the people who think you will own nothing and be happy, right? So, like, we need to say no and fuck you basically to that. So Bitcoin, in my opinion, is the first step to something more beautiful. So to close out, I would like to leave you with a little trailer for the book. In fact, just to give you an idea, this talk came from one of the chapters of the book. I was thinking, what the hell am I going to discuss? And I think beauty is such a powerful and profound topic. So if you guys, well, I was going to say take a photo of those QR codes, but it's all good. I'm going to put this trailer on, and then if you guys are interested in some more information, you can go to bushidoofbitcoin.com, and you'll get all the information there. But sit back, relax, and enjoy a 2-minute trailer of the book. Thank you.